Mr. Ambrose, what priorities will you have elected to assure that Kettering students are prepared to meet their higher education goals or their employment goals?
Everything they said.
That was easy.
And in addition, because no sense in me repeating that, because every point that my opponents and the candidates for this board said is appropriate. However, reading is extremely significant. When we have approximately 11 states in this country who look at the third grade reading scores and extrapolate that out to determine how many prisons you're going to need in 10 to 12 years, that concerns me and should concern you. Also, the OAA, I understand the issues involving that. It's great they test for science and math and English, but you know, I want to know about civics, I want to know about history, I want these kids to know about where we came from, how you balance a checkbook, what's an interest rate means, how do you borrow money, how do you pay it back, life skills. We have kids who are just destined for college and folks who are never going to go beyond their 12th grade, and we have to prepare them to be productive citizens of this community. And without education, it's not going to happen. In the 21st century, and the technical advances in this particular school district is overwhelming. Kettering is the envy of the state. And for us to keep struggling with the budget and the crisis we have involving funding the schools is going to show how much substance this board has to make sure those children are in fact educated. We owe it to them, and they deserve it.
Thank you very much. We'll start with Mr. Spolrich on this question. A lot of the questions and comments this evening on even council as well, I'm sure here in the school, is the current economy and the strain that it puts on that, whether you're operating in a city or operating in a school district. What ideas do you have as a City of Kettering School Board member have for improving funding and or financial support for the local Kettering public schools?
For funding our Kettering schools, there's the basic program of tax, is to knock on the door and ask citizens to raise their taxes. Beyond that, it becomes very difficult, but there are certainly some grants out there for us to take advantage of, possibly some foundations to take advantage of, for us to go out there and search for new dollars. The other situations that will help us provide a quality school system for all students is the ability to make difficult decisions within our budget. And our budget is such that it will take courage. It will take courage to look through that budget and identify areas that we can adjust to make monies available, funds available for our students to continue their quality education.
Thank you. Mr. Trent, share with us your ideas that you have for improving the funding base and financial support for the Kettering Public Schools.
Yeah, first I want to go back and take 10 seconds of what Jim said. We are the envy in the state. And when I traveled throughout the state, serving as a consultant for strategic planning, people knew where Kettering was and people knew about this school system. I just want to say that. I don't like property tax as a way to fund schools, but it's all we have right now until the legislature does something about it. So we're sort of stuck with that. We have been very prudent with our funds in Kettering. 25 elementary positions, 17 middle schools, 16 high school, 4 administrators, 1 music, 1 alternative school, 19 classified people. We've closed an elementary school. We've done a lot to cut back in the last 5 years. In fact, about 10 million in the last 5 years. And Frank is exactly right. You have to be prudent with what you have. You've got to have the taxpayers trust you. And I think right now they do in Kettering, they trust us. And we'll try to keep the trust. But on the other hand, I don't want to cut so deep that it affects our education of the students in their school system. We do have an excellent school system. We have the best school system in the Miami Valley. I am convinced of that. Not because of Jim Trent and not because of the rest of the people on the Board of Education. We do support the teachers and administrators.
Thank you. Yeah, it's your 30 seconds. Very good. Mr. Ambrose, what ideas do you have for improving funding and/or financial support for the local Kettering Public Schools?
In 2 minutes or less, right?
Yes, sir, please.
Well, it can't be done. And I can tell you that with declining property values, loss of jobs throughout the community, loss of pride in the community, this board is going to struggle like it never has before. The old ways are not going to work. We need to get grants. We need to expand beyond the borders of just taxing, tax and tax. It's just not going to make it. It's interesting. To get business in this town, we give these businesses, Kodak, for example, and some other ones, tax abatements. Well, 70 cents of every dollar is taken from the schools. I think the city gets 20 cents or so, or 10 cents, and the rest goes God knows where, or the state and the feds. But the point I'm making is this. We are the ones who suffer. We being the board, the parents, and the children in this community when these tax abatements are done. They are necessary, but they have to be balanced. We're going to have to be imaginative in how we do these things. We're going to have to collaborate with the community, with the board, and the parents, and the administration, as well as the teachers. Now, the teachers have done what they can thus far. They're already at the 50% payment back for the insurance. They're contributing that much. When asked, they have a 3-year freeze. They have to admire them. But I admire the board, frankly, who went to them with the administration, Mr. Clark and Mr. Shainline, and said, here's what we've got, and here's how can we resolve it. And that's what you got to do. You got to compromise. This is not a war that you fight your battles every time. You have to know when to give in and when to try harder. And negotiating and resolving these matters amicably is what this is all about. Because the kids deserve this. And I'm done, I guess, right?
Thank you, Mr. Ambrose. Ms. Sims, what ideas do you have for improving the funding and/or financial support for the local Kettering schools?
The ideas that I have, back in 2006, the previous superintendent, Dr. Mendring, came to the board and told us that we are headed, we already knew that the way that schools are funded was declared unconstitutional. It was never enacted. But he did come to us and say, around 2009, 10, and 11, this is going to be a huge crunch. At that time, we started cutting services. We didn't have a third shift janitor. We turned the lights off at the buildings that are in the parking lot in the evening. Those were all cuts that the board had pushed forward and said, do everything that you can to not do anything to affect educating our students. We started that back then, and that did lead to a $10 million savings that we started back then, closing a school, like Mr. Trent said. He also talked about that unless we do have the legislature change the way that we fund schools, it will not change. So what we need to do is look at sharing services with other districts, saving money that way, but to take away the time and the teachers spend with the students is our last resort. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sims.